Alright, my name is Alex Rothermel. Some of you may know me as Razgrease 2006. That's my screen name on PB Nation. I've made some high performance kits for DM14, DM15, M2, and some other older markers. And I'm going to go through with you and others who are viewing this real quick and share my thoughts on the new Dye DSR. And we're going to be reading through the manual as we're going through this. So, first thing off the jump, um, this core barrel, that's a proto UL that they've milled a little differently. It looks like they're using those blanks to save a little money or whatever. And then the next thought is, we see here this looks a lot like the CSR foregrip, sorry, CS1 foregrip, and well, the difference being that it takes a 9 volt instead of two AA's. And I really just sincerely hope that, as others have said on PB Nation, that this section right here is not susceptible to breaking. Um, that'd be a real bummer if they didn't really reinforce that and people started breaking these pretty easily. Next thought on my list is it's really nice that these DSRs have the updated ASA lever from the M2. Some of you may know that the original UL airport lever was not big enough and it broke and pins snapped, and it was just a really bad time, and it's good to see that they're continuing the good ASA. There wasn't really anything of note on this page. The screen, to me, I was never really big on screens, but I liked and I respected the M2 screen because it showed so much. It showed pressures and it showed profiles. And well, this one does do profiles, and it does have, battery level, game timer, fire mode, rate of fire. It I don't see it as being nearly as useful as the M2 screen. And granted, it's a $900 gun instead of a $1,500 gun. But maybe we could have saved a few bucks with an LED. I don't know. Just my thoughts on that. And going back to the battery, I'm really happy that they are just using regular batteries now, because I saw a lot of them. Well, I saw some M2s that after a certain amount of time, or sometimes it was just from the factory bad. Once you have a bad rechargeable battery, it's really hard to just change it out. It takes you have to order a new one, and the gun isn't acting right. Your LPR pressure is jacked up high. Well, this gun doesn't have an LPR, but things mess up when your battery's not sending enough juice to the solenoid. So, moving on to the settings. This is my next thought. Let me get there. Sorry if I'm sorry. Okay, settings. So some people have told me that Dye was really impressed because this gun will run at any dwell. But the thing is their lowest dwell is 13. So that's odd. With the M2, you could make an argument that you could screw up your gun by setting the dwell too low if you didn't know what you were doing. And that happened a lot, especially on DM15 and older. But if it can run on any dwell, but the minimum dwell is 13, that kind of scares me. And factory default being 16 dwell, whereas the M2 was 15 dwell, that tells me maybe this bolt might stick a little bit. If your dwell's too low, I'm a little worried about that, to be honest. My next thought while reading the manual is I looked here, and then there's another picture much further down in the manual. Let me find it again. Kind of bummer. Kind of a bummer. Oh, well, you can see it really good right here. So the trigger we're back to springs, but looking at this pocket, it's the same exact pocket that they had from the DM6 onward to the DM15. So you can stick a magnet here, and you can put in a set screw here or glue a magnet here, and you can make the trigger magnetic. So I mean, we're kind of going back to the DM15 on that one. Since we're at the trigger already, we lost our reach capability. See, there's no Allen holes here. Some people didn't use that. I did. That's a bummer. That kind of sucks. Uh, and that's kind of it about the trigger. We're trigger wise, we're going back to DM9 on the trigger. Looking at my list again. Okay. Looking at this picture made me think of the bore axis. So, like it's kind of a high bore axis gun compared to some of the other guns on the market. I looked at this side by side with an M2, and it's pretty much right there with an M2. So I guess you could say this is no different. Uh, with there being no LPR, I would have hoped Dye to shrink, bring this up a little bit, like this little transfer plate probably right here with air routing. Wish there would be a way to kind of squeeze that up and get that bore axis right above your thumb. But you can't win everything. Sorry, I'm typing in something because I'm going to go to a page. My next thought was so you have to remove this screw and that screw, and then you still have to peel the grips in order to take the grips off. This is the worst of both worlds. Like, you could argue that with screws that made the grip slimmer and more comfy, and you could also argue that being able to take off the grips and get to the board without screws, if you just knew how to shimmy and pull at the edges, was better. But you literally have to have a tool to get to the board, and you also have to peel at the grips. So this sucks. I can already foresee the arguments. Well, Alex, what do you need to do to get into the board now? The battery's in the foregrip, and you can change everything from your joystick or whatever. But paint gets behind these grips. It's nasty. And when you're in the pits or whatever, and someone drilled your grips 3 times and it's dripping onto your board and into your battery. Well, no battery in this case. You need to get to it quick and clean it all off before it fries something. So this is a major negative for me. This sucks. But on to the next thing. So the bolt assembly. The bolt assembly is by far the thing that has me most interested in this gun. If this gun would have had a proto, like they call it based on the Fuse design, where they have the big rubber bumper on the front and it runs at 140 psi, I would not have given this marker a second look. I would have been done. Now, this bolt looks really interesting to me. I'm still trying to figure out how exactly it works. There isn't an animation for it yet, but some numbers that I ran real quick are going by outer diameters using the O-rings here and the O-rings here. Calculating it out, you have a 0.077 inch surface area times by 115 psi. That gives this first stage here 8.85 pounds of force moving on it. Now, I'm sure someone's going to say controlled airflow, coming through this hole right here. Maybe, maybe not. We're not really sure about that, but we know that controlled airflow didn't work on the NT. It just didn't. So, but the positive side to that is if you look at a Dye M2, its surface area and its PSI, the Dye M2's force was 8.94. So to compare that, I'm gonna type this out for you. DSR equals 8.85 pounds of force. Now, these aren't exact numbers because I went off of given outer diameters for O-rings, so this could be a little different, but this is close. The M2 at 65 psi was 8.94 pounds of force. Now that's just on the first stage. It's a little harder to understand how this bolt will be behaving once it clears this stage right here and once this middle actuating rod starts acting. It is really cool though that Dye has figured out how to almost, it's hard to explain this without referencing the IV core, but so this part will shoot forward when you're shooting the shot, and once it reaches a certain PSI point, this rod will come up and shut it off. And also the other really nice thing about this bolt is there's and they mention it, they market it, but there's a lot less wasted volume for air travel. See, because when an M2 bolt, and let me pull up Paintball Kamikaze real quick. Hold on, I'm sorry, hold on. Dye DM. Now this is obviously not an M2, but the same concepts still apply. You have all this dead space here. That's a lot. And as the bolt moves forward, that dead space actually increases to this area too. And granted, that's not that much, but it all adds up. And that's why the DMs were essentially, they were going to get 10 pods maximum. And that design was determined all the way back on the DM3, DM4, and then finally with the DM6. The DM6 and the M2 bolt are almost unchanged from each other. So this is very little wasted space. That's a very good thing, very positive, good thing. My next thought was this outer bolt, well, the reciprocating part of the bolt reminds me a lot of an FEP Quest. And the problem with FEP Quests, and you can see this little, these little dents or folds here in the metal. FEP Quests actually develop cracks along this area right here. That has me a little concerned, but Dye and FEP are two totally different companies, and to be honest, if cracks did happen, I'm sure Dye would take care of it. But that's just a concern. That's just something I thought of. So I guess aesthetically, I like the M2 button better, but I understand with the working of this machine, this bolt assembly, that was the only way they were going to get it in. So that's fine. Concerned about the O-rings, but that's my thing. If you know me and you know what kind of O-rings I use, that shouldn't surprise you any. I think it's funny that they have a purple-looking 015. I'm surprised they just didn't use their regular red 015 there. It's the same 015 Buna 70. I'm not sure why, but hey, maybe they just want to make it look different. So when I first saw the regulator, I was really excited about it. And there's still some things that I am really excited about. Namely, holy cow, this reg seat. It's different. It's got a little hole in it. Maybe the rubber doesn't suck. Maybe it's not rotten. Maybe, for once, we can get a consistent reg output that doesn't creep. Dye will deny it until the cows come home, but recently their batches of reg seats have been terrible, and they've had rotten rubber, and it's really been handicapping the performance of the M2. So I hope to Jesus or whatever God that you pray to that this reg seat is the truth. So that's a big positive. A little concerning is it doesn't look like there's a lot of volume in this regulator. And typically, when you don't have a lot of volume, that can mean that your gun will struggle to maintain high FPS during a stream if you have a low output pressure tank. And some people will say, well, just use a standard Ninja output pressure. Well, yeah, but it's nice if you don't have to. And certain people have certain guns that are sensitive to pressure, and using one tank at one output pressure for all your guns is nice. So, not a huge deal, but it's a deal. Um, Another thought was, with this being an ASA regulator and it goes straight up, and this gun almost has like an axe-esque transfer tube. That might put some people off because some people might be just really tired of axes, the whole axe plus cash meme. And I don't know. I'm willing to give it a shot, give it a fair shake first. Um, the wireless is nice. It doesn't look as nice as the M2, but again, we're comparing 1500 to 900. And that really brings me, well, okay, real quick. I like the new eye pipes. I think the new eye pipes are kind of a plus for Dye. The old eye pipes were kind of a minus, but um, yeah, and you get a little bit better breech sealing without the breech wear. I think it's a good system now, and the new eye retainers are a lot better than what they used to be. Um, that's really it for that. So my last major thought, and I'll just kind of leave it on this parts breakdown here, is the biggest my one of my biggest pet problems with the Dye DSR is its price. It's $900, and they're clearly taking you're compromising, clearly compromising. You're compromising with the board. You're compromising with the trigger. Compromising with the screen. Uh, and it's really hard to stomach that when you have this thing right here. The G-Tech 160R is a really great marker, and it has almost the exact same bolt system as the. I mean, the DSR is a little different. There's patents and there's interpretations and ways around certain engineering obstacles, but they're both, as that Irony USA guy said, Fasor bolts. They both kind of have the same gist of the operating system, and when you look at the feature set, macroless with a screen, easy pull bolt, almost same bolt operating system. It's really hard to make the argument that the DSR does things better than a G-Tech 160R. And it seems like R is the popular word lately. So, that's really my thoughts. Feel free to flame this video. That's fine. PM me on PB Nation. I'm looking forward to trying the HP O-rings on this thing. But to be honest, with it not having an LPR, I'm thinking that the benefits will either be small or not worth it. And I'm just looking forward to testing it and seeing it. But who knows? We'll see. But I think that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and let's go play paintball.